All right, Coach, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay. Just so everybody online, we'll probably go ahead and open up with a kind of a setting or opening statement from Coach, and then we'll open up for questions after that. So we have another minute or two, Coach. Unless you're ready to roll, then maybe we'll go ahead and get started a few minutes early.
No worries. First, I was informed, obviously, that Bob Osmussen is going through a little bit of a time right now. So just want to think about him and send prayers and good thoughts his way. And then also today, my baby girl Brexley is turning 2 today. We were at one point thought we were going to have a St. Patty's girl, but we missed it by about an hour and 10 minutes. She was born at 1:10 a.m. So we missed a St. Patty's girl, but very happy for her. I didn't get to see her, but I saw her on FaceTime and get to see her in a week when they move out here. So excited for that. Other than that, really just we're in week 8, obviously, of this whole process with our players coming in and reporting back in January to where we are today. We kind of laid out a plan to them where we want them to be and where we're going to go. So this is the final week. We've kind of had a combination this week of both continuing our conditioning, but also kind of a testing and evaluation to some of the tests that they did before they actually came into our building here that Tank and his crew did with them that first week that they reported during the 3 days of quarantine. So we're kind of showing them how they progressed over the last 8 weeks. Next week, obviously, we'll jump into spring ball. Our layout is this. We'll practice every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we'll have a time where we can review the film from yesterday and also, continue their physical development with Tank and recovery, really trying to reset their minds on the process that you need to get better at, right? We don't have game weeks necessarily in the spring, but we will kind of culminate on Saturdays with that probably being our heaviest work day. This week, the first 2 practices, Tuesday and Thursday, will be in helmets only. On Saturday, that'll be our first full padded practice. Won't necessarily have a scrimmage, but we'll definitely get after it. Be the most physical thing they've done at that point. And then it's really how their bodies respond. I thought Tank and his staff had been very insightful about the workload, stress load these guys could handle. We pushed them pretty hard in week 6. In week 6, we began to have some guys flare up with some soft tissue issues. So we backed off them a little bit, tried to be smart on what we're doing, made it creative for them and tried to push them. And then had a really tough Saturday and a competition Saturday where they went against an offensive and defensive player, went head to head, mixed a specialist in there. And it was the hardest work day. And then none of them even were even thinking about the workload. They were thinking about the competition, which is exactly where you want them to be. So a lot of great insight going into them. They're getting around our coaches more and more on a daily basis. The way the NCAA laid it out 2 weeks ago, they gave us an extra 2 hours of meeting time with them that we've been able to capitalize. And I know our guys are really anxious. They're literally, you can just see them feeding off the energy of what we're trying to provide for them. So I think when you get to talk to them this week, you'll probably hear that. So to help your guys' job make this more easy for everybody, the last thing I want to do is ever put anybody's job, make it more difficult than it needs to be, including me as a head coach. So during this spring phase here, you'll actually have media access to either me, my coaches, or our players 6 days out of the week. All right, we'll take Sunday off. We'll all take a breather so we don't have to see each other every day of the week, give the Lord's day off. But I think you'll enjoy that. We'll basically allow a segment of practice where you'll get anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour of time where you can watch us. The advantage we have right now over the rest of this schedule that we have in front of us is next fall's opponent has never seen the University of Illinois with this staff practice or play. And I think we have to keep that in mind as we allow access. And even when we go to the game on Monday, April 19th, we got to keep that in mind a little bit. So we'll address that as that goes, but I want to be able to give you guys access. And obviously one of the main reasons to go Monday Night Football for me was to promote the Block Eye, to get our word out there, to let people see our brand in a time slot that we really wouldn't be competing with any other teams. It'll be a game that'll be based a lot on what our health is, what our numbers are, but I want to make it a competitive game and make it real for everybody involved. And then we'll take a couple days after that to review the game, teach our guys how we want to move forward after a game is completed. But then we'll end up really at the end of our last practice of the spring. In theory, right now would be kind of a in week game week Wednesday type practice for opponents. We'll game plan that last week. We'll lay out how we do our scouting reports, how we do game plan. We'll give our coaches access to our players to show them how they'll approach a practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get us ready for a Saturday game plan. So that's kind of where we're at. A lot of things up in the air about the whole COVID process we're going through right now, from recruiting to really even scheduling of when our guys will be able to come and join us in the summer. We would definitely want to give them a few weeks to get home with their families. It's been a very unusual year, not just the last 6 months, but really the last year and a half for these guys. So it's something that we want to respect and give that. And then just a final shout out, and then I'll open up for questions. I see Kent with a bracket behind him. All right. So I'm sure everybody's got theirs filled out. I cannot by NCAA rules, so I haven't filled one out even for fun. My wife and I compete for garbage takeout. That's about our only thing we wager. So we will fill out our brackets. But other than that, wish Brad and his crew the best of luck. They're fun to watch. But everybody, it's been awesome for me now to be here a couple months and get around. And I met Mike Small, right? I just seen this guy on Zoom and have been able to be around him and see what he's doing, to see Janet and the women's soccer and like all the different sports, just to be around these people. It's pretty awesome athletic department that Josh has put together and maintained from the people that were here before him, and the success that's at all these different programs and spring sports. It's really a fun time to be here. I can't wait to be back to being full normal. So with that, I'll open it up for easy questions.
Jeremy, we'll go ahead and let you lead off, and then we'll let folks follow in on the chat as you signed up. So go ahead, Jeremy.
Good morning, Bret. You've had about 2 months or so on campus here to kind of evaluate your roster now in person. What's involved in that for you and your staff, and what have you learned about your roster that you inherited?
Great question, Jeremy. Like the first time we really saw him was in the pure observation role. I wanted to give Tank, I wanted to jump in and work with him right away, but Tank, after getting the evaluations back where they were, we had some deficiencies by position that we really wanted to make sure, some mobility, flexibility that we wanted to make sure we could work for 4 weeks before we started putting our hands on them. So I would literally just sit up here for the use the bit in the indoor. I call this my little Zoom room here where I'm at. But I can literally overlook the field and watch the guys work out. They kind of know I'm there, but I'm not there. I'm not there looking at them because they kind of get freaked out when we start watching them. We just want to let them get to know us a little bit. I think the athletic composition of our roster is impressive. A lot of things I saw on film, and to be quite honest, when I first got here, I just started recruiting these super seniors and looking at what they had done on film and really, now with Jake brought back all those guys except for the 4 that worked out here the other day, who did a very nice job as well. You can see they're talented. So I've been pleased. I've been also, I have concerns in my head about certain positions, but I'm also probably on the more upside or positive at some positions I didn't know about. So it's still an evaluation process, but we have put our hands on them. We worked with them. We've seen how they responded. I like the way they've competed. They definitely have grown in every aspect that we've asked them to do, but we're nowhere close where we need to be, but we're on that path.
So how much does, watching them in Tank's workouts or whatever you can do now compared to spring ball? Like how much more evaluation can you do in spring ball?
Well, the biggest thing is we can't put a little brown ball out there yet. We haven't been able to be around them when they've actually had a football in any way, shape, or form. Like there's certain drills that we can do with bags and cones, but you can't hit a sled. You can't use simulated drills that are very football specific. So until you really get out there on the football field, there's different phrases out there, but a lot of times guys look good in drills, but maybe they don't do great in skills. So like there's a lot of carryover. Believe me, next Tuesday will be a little bit of an indication. Thursday will be a little bit better, but then Saturday when we put the pads on, that's when the separation usually occurs.
Thanks, Bret.
Yep.
Good morning, Coach. You've spoke a lot about like the family aspect that you're trying to build and the tough, smart, dependable football players that your culture's been built on. How much of the foundation of that is built in this first spring football that you're going to have in a couple of weeks here?
I think it'll be paramount, Alec. I really do. But I like the way they've responded. We do these little football one-on-one classes where I teach and they listen. We usually do them about 15 minutes twice a week. And we go everything. The first thing I talked about was first down, what that meant. And I talked about second down. Then I moved to third down. Then I talked about how those different downs are affected by where you are on the field, whether you're in the normal area of the field, whether you're in the shot to fringe, or whether you cross the 50 or you're in the red area. And that's what I really enjoyed, the response from them. Once we got the building opened up and they could come in and see us, I would make individual cut-up tapes for D linemen, O linemen, skill players, and really look at their films of the past. Maybe I'll compare them to an NFL type player this is, they all think, every edge rusher thinks he's Lawrence Taylor or everybody thinks they're the greatest player at their position ever. And I try to show them guys that they might be similar to or body type wise. And if they could get to that level, that would be a great thing. So the one-on-ones, but also the group settings when we're in our team room have just been awesome. I went through one on Tuesday. I did a end of half, end of game scenario with 2 divisional opponents for us. And when I was going through it, I was just, firing questions at them, and they were unbelievable responses, really, really engaged with it, having some fun with it. So it's been a nice growth for us, but obviously we really won't know until we get into spring ball.
And then have you had a chance to kind of, I guess, talk to your players about the differences that they might have seen in the workouts that you've done? Obviously, like you said, there's no football, but it's all still drills, and how much different it could be in spring ball here coming up.
Yeah, I think the contrast from what they have been exposed to what they're getting exposed to in the weight room was pretty dramatic early. I think once you start to talk to them, they'll be able to give you that feedback. I don't want to speak on their behalf. One of the things we have when dealing with the media is you speak for yourself and not for others. So I'm excited to see what they say. I read an article earlier this week on Vidarian Lowe, and one of the things I think you realize when you're a coach is when your quote unquote more authoritative players or the guys that speak for the team or guys that have a voice in the locker room begin to regurgitate what you say, it means a lot. And to see Vidarian have an unbelievable article about what kind of person he is, the things I've been able to witness with him and see with him. And then one of his last comments in that article was he was going to keep stacking days. And I just like had a huge flash in my mind that we are reaching each other and building a trust and a relationship there. So I think they see it as a positive. I think we really tried to show them why we do things, not just, hey, go do this. This is why we do this. And the results can be this. And, you tend to everybody always wants to point out the negative. I try to point out the positives. On Saturday, we had a little coming to Jesus moment. We had someone not show up Friday night on time. And we went to a meeting on Saturday and I got after him a little bit, and then we gave him a certain reward. And part of that, I also read off 4 or 5 comments that were from their professors, the people that they've been working with in these academic course loads. And there were very glowing comments about people maybe they didn't necessarily think we're going to have them said about them. And remarkably, then over the last 3 or 4 days, the players have been asking me, well, why aren't you saying this about, I only had 4 to go off of, right? I'd like to say all the positive ones out there, but it goes to show you, once again, positive reinforcement can come back tenfold, just like any other type of negative reinforcement.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Coach. High school football starts this week in the state. I know you guys have been really active with your outreach. I saw the little video that you guys had put out on social media. Do you amp up that outreach now that you guys are kind of getting on the field and, having that spring game on Big Ten Network?
Yeah, Marley, absolutely. We made the effort to reach out to every high school coach in the state, and that was an overwhelmingly positive response, and really has led the inroads to even some players that we didn't have our radar for 2023, 2024 in one instance, and really just general outreach to the community. I did a Zoom call with the CPS, Chicago Public Schools. Myself and a couple of my coaches got on there and did that with over 70 coaches in that area, expressed to them, hey, we're not only looking for good football players. If you really follow us, we sent out a tweet this past week. We're looking for some student video workers. So we're really not just reaching the high school student athletes, but people that could be involved in our program. And then, yeah, we definitely have made a lot of contact with the players in the state here, wishing them good luck. I'm sure you'll find this out, but there's actually been a couple games already that have been postponed because of some unfortunate outbreaks, and you got to be. It's a great reminder to our guys. I said it to them last night. We got to pay attention to the world going around us. So I'm just generally excited. But I tell you what, as a head coach in the state of Illinois, right, at the University of Illinois and the flagship of our state, we have to be able to take advantage of this time, right? We got to be able to take advantage of, they're playing 6, hopefully, games that we can take a kid that maybe he was 180-pound underdeveloped sophomore, now he's a 225-pound junior, and he's changed dramatically, or a 260-pound guy that's now 240 pounds and is turned into a different athlete, so to me, it's a benefit for us. I mean, obviously we didn't get the fall, but I wasn't here, so it really doesn't matter. So now we got a chance to evaluate our whole state, and there'll be a couple guys that come out of the woodworks. We actually just signed a guy. I'm sure you guys all followed on Twitter. That was a late addition. We saw his film, saw where he was. We think he's a player that can play for us, and the rest will be written.
And you also mentioned the basketball team briefly. Now that you've been in the community a little bit, I can imagine you've seen just kind of the excitement and the hype that has been surrounding that program. I mean, does that kind of just get you excited for the season and spring ball and like, okay, this basketball team is having an incredible run, like now it's our turn, and just seeing what kind of hype it brings into the community?
Yeah, I distinctly remember when I was first here with Josh, he was kind of give me a tour around campus, and I was remembering as we were riding there, we were coming up on State Farm, and he made a comment to me, and he's just kind of talking. He goes, "It's too bad that a lot of different reasons that we're in this pandemic and all the rules are around COVID." He goes, "Because this place will be rocking right now like it's never been rocking in this modern era." So like it said something to me then, and then as I began to watch this thing unfold, and I see on social media the way our students reacted on Sunday, when they won the Big Ten tournament title. I've actually talked to Brad a number of times, but really only seen him face to face a couple times. Once when I was in the arena, and then we went to say goodbye to him when they were heading to Indy on that send off over there. And yeah, you're excited. I think there's correlations. Like I don't know Isle very well, just watch him play and perform, but I know his story about playing for his home state and how important that was, and maybe he can set a legacy of Illinois basketball for a long time. That's what we need from someone in our state right now in football. That's part of that reason we did that video, right? So like, plus I had those monster 6-pack abs coming out of that sheet of paper. It was the beginning of a game, so that was fun. But it's just there's a great feeling around where we're at. I just had another Zoom last night with a large group of former football players from all over the country. We were on the Zoom last night for about an hour. My whole staff introduced themselves to them, and there were high school coaches that were former players that were on that Zoom call, and they got to ask us questions, and just a really good feel for right now. But, I get it too. We haven't lost a game. We're undefeated, so everybody's happy, but we're going to kind of keep riding this as long as we can.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Brett, hope all is well. Is there a direct correlation between having a successful spring to a successful season, or is it more just really important but not a must?
I would say they're all yeah, there's definitely a correlation and carryover, but I'm going to tell these guys up front, like we have a big meeting tomorrow night, Friday night. Saturday we'll actually come in, and we're actually going to go, and I'm going to take these guys, and I'll put up on the big screen and show them how we've scheduled that first practice, where we're at, the times allotted, where we're supposed to be, and then we're going to go out on the field, and we're not going to do anything except for walk the practice field. And I'm going to show them where they're going to flex, where they're going to stretch, where they're going to work with their linebackers, where they're going to work with the inside linebackers, where they're going to work with the wide receivers, where we're going to do skelly, where we're going to do team. Because when we got that 2 hours out there together, it needs to be just smooth, humming. And for us to be working together the first time, for us to have success in the fall, we just got to keep, start the right way, get better on Thursday, get better on Saturday, get better in these 15 practices, hit the summer. They get 8 weeks with Tank and his staff to get their mind right, get their body right, and then we'll go into fall camp and see where we can go. So I tell you what, in the spring, you get a lot of, when you're established and when you are kind of understanding the expectations, it's fun to see new guys emerge, these super seniors, obviously they're back, they've played a lot of football, but they haven't played a lot of football for us or with us as coaches here. So it's going to be interesting to see those who go forward, maybe those who plateau, guys that are coming back off injury, guys that look different, play different. We'll have a few positional changes, I'm sure, before we get done with spring ball. So it's all going to be hopefully moving forward.
And then my second one is, you're a coach that has said multiple times you want to get to know your guys on a personal level. How has that gone so far? I know you touched on Mr. Lowe, but how has that gone so far for you in the first 8 weeks?
Well, it's probably the only disadvantage is these masks, right? Like I could take them off now. I'm the only one in here, but when we're out on, when you're walking around the building and they're in our meetings, I'm looking out to a team room, with 100 plus guys, and they're all wearing masks, and a lot of them got hats, so like it's just hard to get to know them, their faces. So once we put the jerseys on them and I could see them out there working out without headgear on, that has really just helped me get to know them. And then now, the ones you want to jab a little bit here, like, Barker's always a good target to jab him up a little bit. Anybody that you can realize you want to, I'm trying to get Brandon Peters to, whatever we got to do, recite poetry or read poems to get him to speak more, like whatever we have to do to make these guys communicate. And I tell you what, we had a little team bonding event last week, and I saw these guys interact and communicate with each other. It was really a positive thing for me as coach, just to see the talking in the building and moving on. And then, when guys are competing, you see them cheer for one another, crossover on both sides of the ball. They get to know our coaches. We've had parent Zoom calls. We've had Zoom calls with positional groups. Jake Hansen, when he decided to come back, Jake started joining us through Zoom. I literally sat down with him yesterday for the first time in my life, face to face. I've talked to him numerous times on the phone, but when he got here Sunday night, I guess it was, he had to go through 3 days of quarantine before he could come in the building. So there's just all these layers. We're doing as good as we can. It'll be a lot better over these next 5 weeks, but it's a process, and I'm enjoying it. And I think they really are as well.
Thanks, Bret.
Yep.
Hey, Bret, when spring ball is over, what are the specific things that you're going to look at as markers of success? Is it how comfortable you as a coaching staff are with the guys, vice versa? What are some of those things you're looking for?
I think it's going to be how, 3 key things are always right. Or how are we communicating? How are we going from player to coach to player, and then out on the field, how are player to player communications going? Have they improved every day, right? Are we can we go through 2 weeks of steady growth and then they have to fall back for a day? Can we keep pushing the envelope? I think that's part of it, like the growth of just everything we do. And then the third one, the biggest one, is if they now can begin to trust you without knowing where they're going, right? The greatest sign a coach can be is he can take a player to a new level that he's never been to before without him even knowing it. Like if you can get them to all of a sudden get to a point where they're like, holy, I just did that. Like I just did, and he didn't even know he was doing it. That's when you truly reached your goals. As I hit these guys up early on, I just want 3 things every day: do the right thing, be respectful of others, and be the best you. If we can do that every day, we're going to have a really good chance to get where we want to be. But I like the early returns, but at the end of spring ball, to be honest, Joey, we'll sit down. I've met with a lot of our players, but I've never sat down individually with each guy on the team. And that's something I'll do, because when they are done with spring ball, they got about a 3-week window here on campus before they hit finals and go home. So I'll meet with them, every one of them individually, on academics, athletics, and social being, and then just have a couple, obviously ongoing discussions with each one of them. They'll have a sign out or a checkout with their positional coach, to make sure all the details of where they're going to be, who they're going to be living with, who they're going to be around, what their contact info will be. It's something that'll be a little bit new to them, but it's just a way to kind of wrap up the spring and set the tone for where we want to be in the fall. So that'll be a big part of it as well.
And then for you personally, it's been a couple of years since you've laid out a spring practice and got this thing back into motion. What has this been like for you, and kind of getting back in and laying out your plans?
Well, it's been awesome for me, because I think one of the greatest things you can do is listen, right? I don't have all the answers, but I definitely enjoy listening through people, not only the 10 coaches I hired, but also the 4 GAs and all the other people I brought in around the program. We all steal from people, right, that have success. And one of the great things about being in the NFL the last 3 years is I've been able to go around the country and gauge other programs and what they're doing. I went to coaches that were involved in spring ball that I used to compete against, and all of a sudden I'm in their facilities, working out their players and seeing how they do things. One of the big changes for me is, before I got here, they had transitioned to spring morning practices, and that was totally new to me. It was something that I was intrigued with when I was at my previous 2 spots, but I never transitioned to do that. I would bet you in college football, as much as 60 or maybe even close to 70% of people practice in the morning. So I really did a lot of research on that with coaches that have used that, been around it, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But just little things like you're saying, we got an indoor practice facility, we got a grass field, and we got a stadium. I want to figure out the best one for us to get the best results in practicing, safety for our players, but also consistency for our players and coaches. So it's all a learning experience, but it's something that I love getting back into. I do like being a head coach and being in the front of the room and gathering these meetings. We meet with our coaches basically every day. Yesterday we had a 14-person department head meeting where we talk about everything in the building, from the parking lot to the showers to the parking exit. So it's been a lot of fun. Maybe the others aren't enjoying as much as me, but I've definitely enjoyed every minute of it.
Thanks, Bret.
Yep.
Hey, Bret, good to see you, and thanks for what you said about Bob. That's appreciated over here. Just to lead off, Illinois hasn't had a ton of traditional spring games in the last 6-7 years or so. I mean, beyond just the effect of getting to see these guys in action, why is it so important to bring a traditional spring game, to make sure you have a traditional spring game in your first year here at Illinois, just for this team and this community?
Well, I think at that point we should have a pretty good understanding of the players on the rosters that we have right now. We'll add some more players over the summer, but you should have a pretty good grasp of what your two best players are at your position. The two deep should be pretty clean to you, and we'll have a blue-orange game that will basically feature our best guys that we think playing against everybody else, and we'll set it up to try and let those guys. But I do think the 5 offensive linemen, if we think that a certain group of 5 guys or 6, maybe 7, the more they play together and communicate and talk together in the same game or in that environment, they'll play that way better next fall. And I do want to put our guys, in a position to have a little bit of adversity. I might, a sudden change out, put the ball on the 8-yard line. If it doesn't happen in the first half, I might make it happen in the second half. I want to see these guys respond to adversity. And then I do think, for me as a head coach, I want to see how my coaches handle a game day environment. So we'll be on headsets that day. We'll be able to translate and communicate. We can't get enough positive reps on that. As much of an advantage it is that no one's seen us play, it's a disadvantage to us that we've never worked together in a full game environment. So we'll do it there. We'll probably do it one other time in the spring, and then in the fall, I'd like to do it as many as 2 to 3 other times before we play Nebraska, just so we can handle those moments better.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you said back in week 6 or so, leading up to this point, you had the guys go kind of a one-on-one offensive player versus a defensive player. Why did you decide at that time that was the thing you wanted to do, to see out of those guys? Can you take us into a little bit more of the benefits you see in doing that at that particular time? Yeah,
so we had laid out 8 weeks, right? And to keep a young man's attention and make him continue to grow for 8 weeks is a challenge, right? I think that to keep things new and fresh. So we hit that 5-week mark, and I knew Tank knew exactly where I was going with it. I'm like, I think we need to throw some competitive nature in there. So competition brings the best of everyone, right? I mean, you guys compete each other on an individual basis with your coverage and your product. Players are doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing. So I wanted to make them compete. So we showed them the drills that they were going to do, and they did it within their respective side. Offense came in at one time, defense came in at one time with a specialist, and then we threw the curveball at him. I brought him upstairs on Friday night, and I announced the pairings on Friday night. So one of them was Isaiah versus Tony Adams, right? So take a quarterback versus a wide receiver who's got good athletic ability. I put Owen Carney up against Vidarian Lowe. I put Jarasati against Calvin Avery, right? So had guys at every position that were kind of competing. And right away, people probably automatically thought, oh, this guy's going to get this guy. This guy's going to get this guy. I put Deuce Spann up against a specialist. So it was fun because as they reacted, I knew exactly where they thought they were going. And then we competed the next morning at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. And then we gave them an hour break, fed them, and we brought them upstairs. And then we showed the results, and we made them stand up. And the winner was recognized and the loser was criticized, right? So you build that brand of you compete every day. And because it was crossover, it was cool too to see them react one another. And I just think competition breeds that in you, and the more competitive nature we can be, the better we'll be. And to my point, Colin, I said earlier, on that day when we met at competitive, that was the hardest work day to this point. And I would say universally, those guys handled the reaction to the competition and the actual workload better than they had at any other point. Some of those guys go to trash cans like they're thinking they're water, and they're not drinking for water, believe me. I think it's important. That day we had very little of that, and it was just because they were concentrating on the competition, which is what you're looking for on Saturdays.
Thank you, Bret.
Yep.
Hi, Coach. How much time are you going to be able to spend in the spring installing the new schemes? I know you're going to play completely different schemes than what Lovie Smith did, and how does that process kind of work, starting from the ground up?
Good question, Doug. I think first off, anything that we can carry over from Lovey, like it's much easier for us to learn versus the players, right? This is what we're here for. There's no limit on our hours. A lot of my guys are in the building before 5 a.m. and they're not out of the building until we're done with our last Zoom at 8:30, 9:30 at night. All right. So there's no limit on our hours. There are limit on player hours. We can't make them learn beyond the 20 hours that we have unless it's on their own. So, or the 10 hours that we're in right now. So if we can carry something forward, we try to do that. But on the same account, we had to put in our terminology so that we can get, but a post route is a post route, so like TP, when I was talking with Tony, we try to do as much of that as we can. But schematically, absolutely, we'll spend every day. We've already done that. Really, the last 4 weeks, we've been installing little pieces at a time, situational awareness as well. Like I work with as a head coach, I teach them what an end of half situation is. We teach them what an end of game, what a backed up, what a 4-point play is. We teach them all these football IQ things that make them better players on the field. And when we can show them film from last year or our divisional opponents, that's what we use. I use a little bit of NFL film. But I would say Tuesday, Thursday is going to be a huge emphasis on fundamentals and drills, right? And I don't want them to get them good at a drill. I want them to get good at a fundamental, right? So that's going to be a huge emphasis on Tuesday and Thursday. That's the area that I'm going to let you guys come in and watch from a social distance, to come in and watch that part of it. You'll see that working out. There'll be very little team periods. I think we'll have, out of 24 periods, I believe only 6 of them are team periods. The other 18 are pretty intense fundamental work.
And from the outside, it appears that you've been recruiting to your schemes. I mean, you added running backs, you added linebackers. Do you feel like you're working toward having the personnel that you need to do the things that you want to do?
I'm very excited about what we did in our recruiting department. Pat Embert has been absolutely awesome. I've now added Jay Kaiser, who handles our college personnel. Hired some other people. Nate has been able to join us now in the high school world. We're very close to adding another former alumni that'll help us in the recruiting world here pretty quick. And then we'll probably just have one other position to go. We've added some people in the graphics department and looking to add some people there in the video. And that's probably been the most enjoyable part for me. I love football. I love coaching, but to see this new group of people working, not only just we've been working on this 2021 class still, you know what I mean? Because I specifically kept scholarships back because, there's some players that are going to pop up in this state, or in other words, we also found one in Florida, right? So like there's some great asset to being patient. You don't have to spend all your money at one spot. I used to tell, different people, just because you got $20 don't mean you got to spend it. Same thing in recruiting, just because you have 20 scholarships doesn't mean you got to give them all away. Find the right ones for you. So we're building that, but the 2022 class that we're working on now, building relationships with them. And we've had a couple kids, even though they can't come on your campus and come in your building, they've been able to come to campus. We've had a number of guys the last several weeks tour our campus. My office up there, it's all glass, and I can literally see a prospect down on the sidewalk walking, and I can talk to him on the phone. I'm like the boy in the bubble. I'm like waving at him, but I can't see him. So it's a different time in recruiting, but it's one that we're trying to take advantage of and maximize.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Hey, Bret, how excited was Caleb Griffin when you guys added that wide receiver listing to him?
So Caleb was one of the first guys to ever meet me in the hallway. He came up here, and his grandparents and my grandparents are in the same town, and so there's some personal connections and some things there. And then, when you meet a specialist, you think, I get it. Kickers are people too, but they're specialists, right? They're not the normal football players everybody think about. So I had this visual of Caleb right from the get-go. And then when we started doing these workouts, like my man is just like, he does every drill, like with no effort. No, it's just, he's flying through, he's beating. He's the one that went head to head of Deuce. And we'll just say that the victory margin was very lopsided and it wasn't in Deuce's favor. Right. So, I mean, like you gotta like, and like I started watching all these drills, and he would just, everybody else is sweating, hands over their head, mouth breathing, trying to get air in their lungs. And Caleb's kind of like, just walking around like he's handling it. And So George McDonald came over, and I made the comment about how Caleb handles all things physically better than anybody else. And George came over and he goes, "Hey, can I take him into wide receiver drills today?" And I said, "Let me go ask." And so we went up him, and I said, "Caleb, would you like to do this?" And I go, "Just let's see how it goes." So it went well. And then I brought him in, and I just said, "Hey, I want you to have full competition. And, there's no jobs that are guaranteed to anybody right now. We've obviously had a kicker and a punter that have accomplished a lot here, but I said, I'm going to let you, compete for the starting kicking job. But if you want to, I would also love to have you see what you can do at wide receiver, right? If you can help us, I'd much rather have you stand out on the field and work than have you stand next to me on the sidelines and take stats, right? So we'll see where it goes. He was actually just in my office a little bit ago. We worked out a plan for where we'll be Tuesday, where he'll work with the kickers and when he'll work with the wideouts, and we'll see where it goes.
And then I saw you shifted a bunch of guys over to outside linebacker. What went into that decision? Is it, thinking of what your scheme is going to be going forward?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we took with the defensive line in general, DEs and D tackles, is we kind of took a group of people that we think will be more of outside edge guys on their feet, more of outside linebackerish type guys. And don't right away everybody jumps to 3-4. It's not. It's just it's a 4-2 concept, but the two outside guys might be standing up. They might be down a 3-point depending on the call. We could also play a 3-4 scheme with some of those outside linebackers being actually defensive ends a little bit. So I think it just fits their mold a little bit. Coach Kane's been doing a great job with them. It's the position I coached last year with the Giants. Feel very comfortable with it. Have been showing them some clips of guys that I think they play similar to and how it can benefit them and help them. Bottom line is, if you're an outside backer and you're on your feet, you just see things a lot better. You see things, jet motion sweeps, alignments, tight splits, wide splits, depth of a back, all the things that you really can't see when you go down to a 3-point. So the more you can see, hear, and communicate, the better you'll play.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Brett, if I could ducktail off that, just how excited have you been about the embracement of these super seniors to maybe asking them to do something different, and the excitement that they feel in that, and the energy that they feel in that? Because it can be scary for them when you ask them to do something different, but they seem to have embraced it and want to embrace the idea of putting more tools in their toolbox.
It's a great, the world of football is spoken usually in English, right? Like we all played college football, we covered it, everybody speaks English, but in every program that I've ever been, whether a player or a coach, the words and the verbs mean different things. Like, I know in one system I was in, the word rose meant we were going to run a bootleg to the right, right? If we said lily, we're running a bootleg to the left because they use flowers to tell you it's a bootleg. Big deal, right? But when you're talking to Joe Schmo in the grocery store, right? If you pointed at a rose, he's going to know what a rose is. You're not going to be thinking of a bootleg, right? But that's where my mind went. So communication is unique and different to the program that you're in. So I told these guys, hey, we may call this something different, but it's really this. And with the outside linebackers in general, I just said, hey, you're still a defensive end. You think you've been a D end your whole life? You're still a defensive end, but you have a little bit of a linebacker feature to you. Same thing with our safeties, our corners. We're calling everybody a DB because we don't know right now where everybody's going to fit in. We want our best players in the best positions. So words are awesome. I love words. I love communication. I'll give you an assignment, Matt. All right. Next time you can tell me where the term ducktail comes from and why it's used in that term. All right. You can Google that one up, but it's very unique when you find it out.
And you also mentioned about trying to get Brandon to talk more. I think everybody who's met Brandon has come to that conclusion. What are you excited about being able to see him for 15 practices and maybe have him take on a leadership role as he tries to win the quarterback job here this spring?
Well, everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. And his strengths are, he's obviously a big body, he's very athletic. You can see that in our drills. You can see off film. I haven't been able to work with him while he's throwing, but he's definitely has an arm. But his skill set is his skill set. The things he needs to do, right? Has he played his best football? No. All right. Well, how do you play your best football? Part of that is he's got to communicate with his teammates better, in a louder fashion. Isaiah, on the flip side, he's got a lot of great skills and tools. All right. But his weaknesses are the things he needs to work on. So both quarterbacks, but both of them are completely different set of skill sets, which we'll work through. We'll manage it. We'll be fine. But they both have to recognize what those weaknesses are. And I think that quarterback position group in general I'm excited to see them get out there and see where they'll work and see how they'll go through things.
Thanks, Brett. I'll have that
Yep.
for you next time.
All right.
So we've got time for 3 or 4 more questions. I see some follow-ups. We'll try to get through those. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes. So go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Kent. Brett, just a quick follow-up. Governor Pritzker announced literally within the last 2 hours that that people ages 16 and up can get a vaccine starting April 12th. How do you think that might impact your team going forward in the spring or summer seasons?
Yeah, I think it's obviously huge. I've been vaccinated. Most of my coaches have all been, but obviously the ones that we're concerned the most about are players. And not just that, the people that they're around, right? Young people hang around young people. That's the way the world works. So I think anything that really overrides anything that I say or do in this building, we're always just worried about the safety of the people in this room, in this building. And we've seen it, on a big scale. We've seen it on a small scale here at the University of Illinois, but also college. We're all part of college athletics. So one of the most, pressing issues is when do we open up this dead period for us in recruiting? Because for my entire time here, they haven't been able to be on our campus, see our coaches, we're Zooming. We're like Zoom freaks, right? We have 3 or 4 a day, and we set them up with their parents, and we got 6 people on a Zoom call all around one young man, but they could be in 6 different states. So there's been parts that have been good that have taught us we can do that, but we need to see them face to face. That's what the parents, they want to see, feel, and touch what we're all about. So if that gives us a better chance to, open up the doors in recruiting, but then also some of the protocols that we got to deal with our students right now every day, I give them a lot of credit. These guys, we start spit testing or COVID testing. They spit at 5:30 in the morning every day, and they got to get that in before our lift at 6. And we have not had any issues. Our guys have been so conscientious, and just amazing me, the maturity they've shown towards that. So if they can get our current roster vaccinated and the students here on campus vaccinated, I think the world will be a little bit more back to normal, hopefully in the fall.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Hey, Brett, I wanted to quickly follow up on this football 101 that you do. I've heard you talk about it before. What's the origin of that, and how do you feel like that creates a one-to-one connection with the players?
Well, it probably goes back to, I guess I did a little bit at Wisco, but really a lot at Arkansas, and then in the NFL. One of the first things I did when I went to work with the Patriots is I would try to build myself into that hallway and into that coaching staff. I would meet with all the incoming rookies, offense and defense, just about football knowledge, football IQ, football. And I kind of turned that in when I came here. Every course on campus is 608, 403, 10. So I just, I'm very entry level here, 101. I'm not claiming to give any master's degrees, but right when I say football 101, you'll literally see every kid in our team meeting. He leans forward, grabs a notebook, and just sits there. And there's a reaction to it that I get excited about because I know I'm spitting some knowledge into them, and I keep it very specific for one lesson. Like we don't talk about 16 different things. We focus in on one thing and teach them, how the game is really, most of the time games are lost than won. Like I say that all the time to them, more games are lost than won. And I would show them, especially early on, games that they either won last year or didn't. Like you guys all know how the end of the Rutgers game came out, right? It was a game-winning field goal, but that was really set up by several red area possessions that made that situation possible. So they got down to a field goal rather than a touchdown needed. So I teach them how the game might have 80 plays, offense and defense, but it's really getting down to how these 5 to 10 plays are managed during the course of the game. Sometimes they happen in the first quarter, sometimes they happen in the fourth quarter, but they all matter.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we'll wrap up today with Jeremy. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hey, Brett, I just want to follow up on your defense. I think all of us want to label what you're going to run, but is that a foolhardy exercise these days? Because it seems like everybody is so multiple.
I do. I understand why everybody loves the label, right? Everybody loves the label. We're all consensus takers, right? We want to put everybody into a slot whereas if we just all be ourselves, we'd be a better place, right? So same thing in football. I've been so impressed with Ryan. I have 3 defense. Ryan's our defense coordinator. He's calling the shots, but Andy Boo's been a defensive coordinator. Kevin Kane's been a defensive coordinator. And then the 2 guys that haven't been were 2 guys that have played in my system as players, Aaron and J-Mo. And then K Rich is one of our graduate assistants. So to have all these guys kind of tie together into certain things has been fun to watch. And all we're trying to do is find out what our best players to play in the best positions to give us the best chance to win. And whether that's going to be a 4 down front, a 3 down front, a 2 down front, with 2 on the edges, it's kind of a work in progress. But I'll tell you, Ryan is a very impressive a guy. He's been a defense coordinator now, I believe, 6 years in total, but he's done it in a couple different schematical settings. So I think the guys are really buying into what he spits. He might let you in on a little insight. I thought he's done a great job of creating a label and a tag with our defense that is kind of encompassing the history of Illinois football, but also letting them have an identity of what they are right now, and they get to write that identity. So there's some fun things happening within the building for sure.
Thanks, Bret.
Thank you.
All right, Coach. 45 minutes. We appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for talking with everybody.
Appreciate it. You guys have one. Be safe.
Thank you, Coach.